Sister Godfrida, the killer nun of 1976. The story of Sister Godfrida from Belgium became famous in 1976, and to this day, it is whispered with fear. Sister Godfrida, whose real name was Cecile Baum, was known as the kindest woman at St. Andrew's Hospital in Tiel, Belgium. She was the kind of nun who would hold the hands of dying patients, praying softly for their peace, and her smile would bring calm to the ward. She always performed her duties with honesty, embodying faith, love, and humanity in her life. But one day, her life took a turn. In her 30s, Cecile underwent surgery for a brain tumor. When she returned after recovery, she was no longer the same. The light in her eyes had faded, her smile disappeared, and her behavior changed. She became more irritable, displaying strange behaviors, like staring for too long, smiling at odd moments, and claiming she could see the suffering in people's eyes. Her prayers turned cold and dark, and she began showing an unhealthy obsession with death and the afterlife. This change coincided with a rise in unexpected deaths at the hospital. One elderly patient after another passed away quietly, painlessly, but far too many, too close together. When autopsies were conducted, a terrifying pattern emerged. Every victim had been given a lethal dose of insulin, and the person responsible for administering the insulin was Sister Godfrida. The same nun who had once fought to save her patients was now slowly killing them. When questioned, Sister Godfrida confessed to 3 murders, claiming she only wanted to end their pain, to help them find peace. But witnesses said she smiled as she spoke, as though proud of what she had done. Police believed there were more victims, possibly 30 or more, but the church and hospital kept the details silent, protecting their reputation. She was declared insane and sent to a psychiatric hospital, where she lived out the rest of her life in eerie calm, often humming hymns to herself. Some doctors believed her surgery had damaged the part of her brain that felt empathy, while others thought something far darker had taken root in her faith. No one ever truly knew what changed inside her, only that the woman who once brought peace now brought death. Believing both were the same thing, Maria Ranada von Mosau, the witch nun of 1749 in the summer of 1749, a wave of fear spread through a small convent near Würzburg, Germany. The nuns claimed demons haunted their halls, strange whispers in the dark, candle flames dancing without wind, and one name whispered in terror: Maria Ranada von Mosau. Maria was no ordinary nun, highly educated, disciplined, and well respected as the sub-prioress. Maria was the convent's intellectual, a woman who studied herbs, medicine, and Latin scripture. But in 18th century Europe, knowledge was considered a dangerous thing for a woman to possess. When the other nuns began convulsing and screaming, claiming possession, the church pointed to Maria. They searched her cell and found jars of herbal powders and ancient texts, enough to brand her a witch. Under torture, Maria confessed to having made a pact with the devil at the age of 7 and bewitched the convent with secret spells and potions. Her confession was recorded verbatim in the Würzburg court archives, preserved to this day. On June 21, 1749, Maria Ranada von Mosau was beheaded and burned, her ashes scattered to prevent her from rising again. But historians now believe she was innocent, that the possessions were a case of mass hysteria, and her witchcraft was nothing more than herbal healing misunderstood by superstition. Still, her name lives on in German folklore as the Witch Nun of Würzburg, and it is said that her ghost still lingers near the convent walls, whispering the same forbidden prayers that once cost her life. Sister Germana, the possessed nun of 1970. In 1970, deep inside a small convent near Milan, Sister Germana's prayers began to sound like screams. She was a devout woman, disciplined, obedient, the kind who never broke silence. But soon the other sisters noticed strange changes. She went days without sleep, muttering to herself in Latin she had never studied. She refused holy water, clawed at crucifixes, and accused unseen forces of mocking her during prayer. The reason behind the sudden change in her behavior was never understood. Sister Germana went from being a well-respected nun to becoming a disturbing, inhumane figure within days. When her episodes turned violent, destroying religious icons, speaking in growling voices, the convent called in Father Pellegrino Ernetti, a well-known exorcist at the time. The church authorized an official exorcism, one of the few ever documented inside a convent in Italy. Witnesses said that during the ritual, Sister Germana's body contorted in impossible ways. Her voice split in two, one weeping, the other laughing, showcasing the demonic possession in her. The priest's diary later described a dark, intelligent presence that resisted every prayer. For 4 nights they battled the force until at dawn on the final day, her body went still. She never woke up. The church quietly ruled her death as cardiac failure during the exorcism. Her name disappeared from official convent records, and only fragments of the priest's notes survived, archived years later by scholars studying Vatican exorcism cases. To this day, no one knows what truly happened inside that convent. Was she possessed, or was she driven to madness by isolation and guilt? The truth died with her that night. And if you ever visit the old convent in Lombardy, locals say you might still hear the faint echo of a nun's voice in the chapel, praying to something that was never God. Sister Helena, the exorcist nun. The story of Sister Helena is told in a remote village in Canada, where she was a nun with profound knowledge of exorcism. She was said to be an expert at understanding and controlling supernatural forces that were beyond the reach of ordinary humans. One incident from her life became a tale that is still spoken of with fear in Canada. A strange and mysterious exorcism. Sister Helena, who was highly respected in her village as a spiritual leader and nun, spent years working in the depths of exorcism. It was said that she possessed a spiritual power far greater than the forces of this world. She intervened in cases that were often too complex and unsolvable for doctors and experts. One day, a set of parents brought their daughter to Sister Helena. The girl was severely suffering from mental and physical issues. She would sleep in terror at night and often engage in strange actions during the day. Sometimes she would drag herself on the floor, at other times making strange noises, and her eyes held such fear that anyone who looked at her would feel unsettled. The parents believed that the girl was under the influence of a supernatural force. Sister Helena assessed the girl's condition and immediately decided to perform an exorcism. She placed the girl in her room, and during the process, a strange atmosphere filled the air. During the exorcism, Sister Helena heard the girl's voice change into several different voices. Sometimes she would speak in her normal tone, and at other times she would shout with frustration and anger. Then, an eerie flame started emerging from the girl's eyes, as though there was an unearthly power hidden within her. The scene was so chilling that the witnesses, who were present during the ritual, could not believe it was real. Sister Helena continued the exorcism with full force, and eventually the girl's condition visibly improved. The girl, who had been uncontrollable before, now sat calmly, her fear and smile returning. Sister Helena had successfully healed the girl, but her own state had changed in a strange way. It is said that after this exorcism, the fear never left Sister Helena's eyes. It was felt that an immense dark power had taken root in her, and she occasionally started hearing strange voices, warning people about herself. Some say that after that day, Sister Helena's spirit had become shadowed, and she no longer remained the same expert exorcist she once was. Her personality seemed to transform completely. In Canada, the tale of this incident is remembered as one of terror. Locals claim that Sister Helena's work was to fight against the supernatural forces. But after this battle, she became a changed person. Many years later, people still say that Sister Helena's presence can still be felt near the village's cemetery, where occasionally people sense her presence. Sister Helena's story continues to be told, and her name is remembered not just as a successful exorcist, but also as a reminder that the influence of spiritual power can change a person's fate. Maria Perdue, the witch nun of France. In the 16th century, the story of Maria Perdue became a famous and mysterious event in France. She was an intelligent, educated, and talented nun who was skilled in herbal medicine. Her expertise was not just a professional skill, but she was completely devoted to using natural methods to prevent diseases and heal people. However, it was this very expertise and growing popularity that became the catalyst for complications in her life and a painful turn of events. Maria hailed from a small village in France, where she lived her life as a nun. Her study of herbs, knowledge of medicine, and natural healing methods became popular not just among the locals, but also spread to neighboring villages. It is said that Maria saved many lives with her herbal remedies and provided spiritual guidance as a Christian nun. Many people found relief from pain, and her natural treatments were seen as a blessing. However, this increasing popularity created a new problem. In the 16th century, Europe was gripped by fear and suspicion of witchcraft, especially when it came to women who were seen as powerful or possessing extraordinary abilities. The Church began to view the use of herbal medicine as heretical, and Maria's rising influence became a threat to them. As some local nuns started to complain that Maria was practicing witchcraft, the Church's authorities accused her of being a witch. The allegation was that not only was she healing people with herbs, but she also had ties to demonic forces and was conspiring with them. Rumors spread that Maria had made a pact with the devil and was controlling people through magic. During this period, the Church searched Maria's cell and found herbal recipes, ancient texts, and unusual items. Based on these findings, she was branded a witch and put on trial. She was accused of not only healing people with herbs, but also using her powers to manipulate their minds. After the witchcraft charges were leveled against Maria, she was subjected to torture in an effort to extract a confession. She endured severe physical torment, and during this time, she was forced to confess her crimes. She stated that at the age of 7, she had made a pact with the devil, and in return, she'd used herbs and natural methods to heal people. These confessions were later documented and used as evidence to support the accusations of witchcraft. Maria's trial took place, where she was found guilty of being a witch. On June 21, 1749, Maria Ranada von Mossau was beheaded and burned, with her ashes scattered to prevent her spirit from rising again. Although Maria's death was officially declared as a punishment for witchcraft, historians now believe that she was innocent, and the charges against her were solely because of her knowledge of herbal medicine. Her magic was simply natural healing, which at the time was misunderstood as heresy. Her story still lives on in German folklore as the witch nun. She is remembered as a nun who was persecuted for her knowledge and healing skills. Historians now recall her as a woman who was executed simply because she was going against social norms by spreading her knowledge. Maria's story serves as a lesson about how knowledge and power can be vilified, and how women, because of their abilities, were often harmed. It is said that her spirit still lingers near her village, whispering to people, offering the prayers she had to carry with her due to the accusations of witchcraft. Sister Bruna, the cursed nun. In a small village in Italy, the story of Sister Bruna became a famous and mysterious event that still echoes through the corridors of history. Sister Bruna was sent to live a life as a nun from an early age, but as time passed, something strange began to change within her. She had always been devoted to her faith, but after a while, whispers started to circulate about the unusual transformations she was going through. It was said that she became a woman under the influence of dark, demonic forces. Her behavior became increasingly erratic and uncontrollable, especially at night. There were reports of her muttering in strange languages and speaking incoherently, as if she were conversing with unseen spirits. The villagers spoke in hushed tones of how she would sometimes display unnatural strength, moving heavy objects with apparent ease or even levitating during moments of intense emotion. As her condition worsened, the local church authorities were alerted to the strange occurrences. The elderly monks, who had witnessed some of her disturbing behavior, decided to intervene. They believed that the changes in her could not be explained by any natural means. The church, in its fear of the unknown, concluded that Sister Bruna had fallen victim to demonic possession, and she was subjected to an exorcism to rid her of the malevolent spirits. On the day of the exorcism, the situation reached a terrifying climax. It was reported that during the ritual, her voice shifted into multiple different tones, ranging from a deep, guttural growl to high-pitched, childlike whispers. The witnesses claimed that her eyes turned completely black and that her body contorted in unnatural ways. Some even said that they could hear voices within her, speaking in languages that no human could understand. As the ritual continued, her body seemed to become more and more rigid, as if the very life force within her was being drained away by the evil entities that had taken hold of her. Despite the efforts of the priests and exorcists, Sister Bruna was never fully freed from the forces that controlled her. Her condition deteriorated so rapidly that it became clear that she was no longer the same person. Her once gentle nature had been replaced by an overwhelming darkness, and her body and spirit were seemingly lost to the possession. In the end, after a long battle with the demons that had overtaken her, Sister Bruna passed away, her soul claimed by the forces she could not escape. Her story, however, did not end there. The church, embarrassed by the public nature of the exorcism and the sinister events surrounding Sister Bruna, decided to quietly bury the details. They sent her to a psychiatric hospital, citing her condition as a mental illness, but the villagers knew the truth. In their eyes, Sister Bruna had been cursed by something far darker than mere madness. Today, her story remains a subject of debate among the older villagers, some claiming that she had truly been possessed, while others believe that she had suffered from a mental breakdown that was misinterpreted as demonic intervention. Her name, however, continues to live on in local folklore as the Cursed Nun, a reminder of how faith, fear, and the unknown can collide in the most terrifying of ways. Some say that on quiet nights, if you listen closely near the village church, you can still hear strange whispers and unsettling sounds, a reminder of Sister Bruna's tragic fate and the dark forces that took hold of her. Whether she was truly cursed or a victim of circumstance, her story remains one of the most chilling and mysterious in the annals of the village's history. ChatGPT said, Sister Caterina, the nun who was a sorceress. In the 17th century, Sister Caterina was one of the most well-known and respected nuns in all of Italy. She was a woman of great intellect, deep faith, and remarkable discipline. A scholar fluent in Latin and Greek, with an exceptional grasp of theology and natural sciences. Within her convent, she was admired as a teacher and healer, yet behind the sacred silence of the cloisters, strange whispers began to spread. Whispers that would one day destroy her reputation and end her life in tragedy. Sister Caterina had always been different from the other nuns. While most devoted themselves solely to prayer and service, she spent her nights studying ancient texts, writings that delved into astrology, alchemy, and metaphysical energy. Her curiosity was insatiable. She believed that understanding the hidden forces of the universe was another way to understand God himself. But such thoughts were considered dangerous, even heretical, in the eyes of the church. When she began to help villagers using herbal mixtures and symbols drawn from ancient knowledge, people saw her as gifted. Many claimed she could predict illness before it appeared and could summon lost animals back to their homes. Yet, as her influence grew, fear followed. Some of her miracles began to look too uncanny to be divine. It started with a single rumor. A merchant's wife, cured of a mysterious fever by Caterina's remedies, swore she had seen her eyes glow faintly in candlelight as she prayed. Soon others came forward, farmers, servants, and even fellow nuns, whispering that Sister Caterina could control fate itself. They claimed she decided who would live and who would die with nothing but a touch or a whispered word. The church took notice. An investigation was launched by the Inquisition, and Sister Caterina's private quarters were searched. Hidden beneath her desk, they discovered old manuscripts, writings on lunar cycles, celestial forces, and the balance between life and death. Though these could have been scientific notes, they were interpreted as evidence of witchcraft. Under pressure and fear, Sister Caterina was brought before the tribunal. Witnesses described her as serene, almost defiant. Her eyes filled with something that unsettled even the priests. She denied the charges of devil worship, but admitted to seeking divine knowledge beyond scripture, a confession that sealed her fate. During her interrogation, it was claimed that her presence caused candles to flicker and metal crucifixes to vibrate. One priest even fainted, declaring that a power not of God filled the room. These accounts were recorded and used as justification for her execution. She was accused of performing sorcery, manipulating destiny, and communicating with the unseen realm. The verdict: guilty of heresy and witchcraft. Before her death, Sister Caterina reportedly made one final statement: "You fear what you do not understand. One day, knowledge will not be a sin." She was executed by hanging, her body burned afterward to prevent her from returning. As the church believed witches could rise again, yet after her death, something remarkable happened. Several of the people who had testified against her vanished under strange circumstances. Others claimed to see her silhouette near the convent walls at dusk, her voice echoing softly in Latin prayers that no one could decipher. Today, historians view Sister Caterina not as a witch, but as an early scientist, a woman who sought answers in a world where curiosity was condemned. In Italian folklore, her name lives on as the Sorceress Nun, a tragic figure representing the eternal conflict between knowledge and dogma, enlightenment and fear. Locals still whisper that when the moon is full, and the wind moves through the olive groves near her old convent. You can hear a faint voice murmuring from the chapel ruins, a prayer for forgiveness, or perhaps a curse upon those who silenced her pursuit of truth. Sister Andrea, the demon-possessed nun. In the late 19th century, deep within the mist-covered hills of Italy, stood an isolated convent whose silence was disturbed by cries that no prayer could quiet. Those cries belonged to Sister Andrea, once known as the most devout and gentle of the sisters, a woman whose life had been defined by obedience, compassion, and unwavering faith. Yet within a few short months, devotion gave way to horror, and Sister Andrea's name became a whispered curse throughout the region. At first, there was nothing unusual about her. She prayed longer than anyone, fasted more strictly, and spoke often of visions, of light, of angels, of voices calling her to a higher service. But one night, the voices changed. Instead of hymns, she began murmuring in a language no one recognized. Her gentle hands shook violently. Her eyes rolled back as she spoke of shadows walking behind the altar. Soon she stopped eating, stopped sleeping, and started screaming in the chapel at midnight. Witnesses said that her voice no longer belonged to her. It came in layers, sometimes a whisper, sometimes a roar, and the air in the convent would turn unnaturally cold whenever she appeared. Crucifixes fell from the walls. Candles extinguished themselves. Terrified, the Mother Superior sent word to the local diocese. Within days, a team of priests and exorcists arrived. They brought with them holy water, relics, and crucifixes, but also a deep unease, for possession cases were rare and often fatal. When the priests confronted Sister Andrea, she greeted them not with fear, but with a mocking smile. The exorcism began in the convent's stone cellar. Records later described what followed as a night that defied reason. As prayers filled the air, Sister Andrea's body arched violently. Her spine bent at impossible angles, yet she did not break. She spoke in the voices of several people at once, male, female, childlike, each uttering blasphemies the priests refused to repeat. Her skin blistered without fire. Her eyes, once blue, turned completely black. The exorcism stretched over 3 days. The priests took shifts, collapsing from exhaustion, their faith tested to its limits. One of them later wrote in his diary that when he pressed the crucifix to her forehead, she laughed in a voice that was not human, and the metal hissed as if plunged into boiling water. On the third night, just before dawn, she suddenly went silent. For a moment, everyone thought the ritual had succeeded. But then Sister Andrea lifted her head, smiled faintly, and whispered, "He's still here." The lights went out. When the torches were relit, she was gone. Search parties scoured the countryside for weeks. Some claimed to have seen her wandering barefoot near the woods. Others swore they heard her chanting through the convent walls long after her disappearance. The church officially declared her missing, sealing the records and ordering the surviving sisters never to speak of her again. Years later, construction workers renovating the convent reported finding a narrow bricked-up chamber behind the chapel. Inside were claw marks on the walls, and a rosary, fused to the stone as if burned into it. To this day, no one knows what truly happened to Sister Andrea. Was she consumed by a demon, or did her mind fracture under the weight of faith and isolation? In Italy's darker folklore, she became a figure of both terror and pity, the nun who prayed too deeply and listened too closely. Local villagers still claim that on cold winter nights, when the bells toll after midnight, a faint voice can be heard echoing through the old convent ruins. A woman's voice, reciting the Lord's Prayer backward, and when that happens, even the bravest priests cross themselves and whisper, "Pace all'anima di sorella Andrea," peace to the soul of Sister Andrea.